Alright guys, welcome back to Valorant News. Big updates in the Valorant world yesterday with ShahZaM seemingly responding to the Evil Genius's decision to move their roster in a different direction after the supposed trial that ShahZaM had with EG not all that long ago. But also FNS commenting on which of the top theoretical teams in the Americas region will likely flop going into the new year. Only 2 teams can qualify for Masters Madrid, and there are easily more than 2 great teams theoretically going into the new season. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Lots to dive into. Firstly, the new Riot Games Arena. I believe the venues this season in the Americas and in the Pacific are going to stay the same. Not exactly sure where it's going to be held in China, but this is the new region. They'll be hosting the VCT EMEA events, which begins on February the 20th, when they are running the playoffs qualifier tournament basically for Masters Madrid. So thought that was kind of nice to see. There was also lots of talk as well, and understandably so, over the last couple of days on Outlaw, right? This new weapon in the game. How impactful is it going to be? Dirk and, well, Fnatic have their thoughts on that. They think that it's very strong indeed. And to be fair, it does farm more impressions if you're a player going for a tweet to say, oh, it's broken, it's busted, etc., than to say that it's not so much of a big deal. But Dirk also says, how about we change the practice range? Because I think this is also a fair point. It's basically been the same for like 3 years at this point. Like, increase, decrease amount of bots run around, and not only strafe and other ideas would be a good idea, but, making them look like agents as well might be a good idea. So there's a few things I'm sure they could tweak, but they've been focusing, of course, on bringing Outlaw in. Now, Kaplan has an opinion which is somewhat contrary to the norm, I would say, in terms of whether the weapon is going to be busted or not. I still think what we talked about yesterday, that if you lose pistol, you might as well not buy anything, is arguably still true, because especially on attacking side, I think on defense it's a little bit of a different story, because you lose pistol, the Outlaw and any operator, sniper weapon in general is always going to be better on the defensive side, naturally speaking, just because of the way that the game works, holding angles and all this. So I guess if you're on the defensive side and you lose pistol, forcing up is still maybe viable. But if you're on the attacking side, there kind of is no point, because they're just going to use an Outlaw. Now, maybe the gun isn't too strong in certain situations. I do think the fact that you can get the follow-up shot off very fast is really powerful, but then again, the zoom is quite severe, so, close range to hit the couple of shots in a row is very challenging. So I don't think the weapon is like, completely broken, but I still think that it is very strong. Kaplan, though, his opinion is that it's just going to be a situational weapon, and it's not as broken as the Classic, the Shorty, the Frenzy, the Stinger, the Bucky, the Judge, or the Ares even was when they were at their best. So he reckons the Outlaw's not going to be the new, R8 revolver of what it was in Counter-Strike when that first came out, and it's going to be, a perfectly balanced weapon, which might be true, and we'll see what happens on this going forward, but I also think that it will change the meta to some degree in terms of what teams do, because knowing there's an Outlaw on the other team will change the way people think about the game, and whether that's for good or for ill, I suppose time could potentially only tell on that one. Now, a couple of roster things as well. This is interesting from Talon Esports. Apparently they're signing Surf, who was formerly of that Xerxia team back in the day, joining Talon for the upcoming season. Now, if this is going to happen, who's he replacing, if anyone at all? Their roster, of course, somewhat controversial, really, when they signed Governor and Ban to their team, but Cruz, Jitboy, Lenny, of course, Patafan, kind of inactive, he's stepping away and all this, but Ban and Governor. So they did all right in that kind of recent tournament they played. I think it was, this maybe Clash of Nations one or whatever it was, that they were, like, delivering some good results in, or at least looking reasonably respectable. But yeah, now either Surf is coming in on their bench, or he's coming in to replace someone on the starting team. So that'll be interesting to see how that one develops going forward. Speaking of rosters, we also have confirmation of the rosters for the respective teams for the Ludwig Tarek 2 Invitational, which is happening, well, it starts tomorrow. We probably expected Sentinels to play in this one, but they've decided not to. They don't feel like it's beneficial for them. Totally get that. But these are the rosters in play. So 100T, Asuna, Bang, Busio, Cryo, and EU. That's finally been confirmed. Moist Shopify, of course, with Fly Armada, Vic, Brook, and Thief. So they've been looking good. But all these teams, it's going to be really interesting to see the battles between 100T and Cloud9, because on paper, these two teams, 100T, Cloud9, are kind of middle of the pack teams in the Americas, I would say. And Oxygen and Moist Shopify are kind of, very much up in the mix of being the best team in the challenger side. So how's that going to work? We know that at the Sentinels Invitational they did, these teams were very good, but now in theory you've got 100T, Cloud9, teams with, more time or experience, and I think these teams in the Pro League could be, one of these teams will probably be like an upset team that actually does significantly better than we think they might do, but I guess it remains to be seen who that's going to be. I'd probably say out of the 200 tier, more likely to be that team, but I still kind of like this Cloud9 roster they've managed to put together here, but I'm just not sure how they'll match up against the real top teams, and we'll see some evidence of how they might match up against teams they should beat when they play Oxygen and Moisturify coming up over the next couple of days. Now, we've got to talk about this whole EG situation. We saw yesterday that Derek had, well, signed a deal. Oh, wow, contract is signed, and this is now a done deal. Like, we saw EG jail warden send him a friend request, right, making it quite clear that, you know, EG are potentially on the way. But even James of F says it as well, that there is a verbal, and quite possibly more than verbal, really, given the fact that he says he's signed a deal. So I don't know if that's officially pen to paper, but yeah, Derek to EG is no-brainer. Superman's coming in as well. That's the situation. So it seems like EG have set on their roster, and they kind of need to, let's be honest, because it's basically a month until the season starts. So you've got to have a roster at some point, and you know, might as well be now, because they've done lots of trials for months, EG, and they probably thought they were going to have different players to now they actually have. So Potter is trying to cook something up, and this is where we now find ourselves. However, ShahZaM, though, yesterday tweets the following out: I'm ready for 2025. So he's had a tough start to the year for a couple of reasons we'll discuss here in a second. But, well, potentially one of them is Evil Geniuses related. Just because James of F, who obviously knows about this stuff, comes in the replies and says, I would have chosen you over them. You know who them is. And even then George Geddes on his other account comes in the replies and says, you know, makes it very clear what we're talking about here. Shaz was too evil to be a genius. So there were rumors probably a month or so ago now that ShahZaM was trialing with Evil Geniuses as their like IGL operator player. It was you know, even not that long ago, I'm pretty sure, in the most recent spreadsheets that Rocket Bullets and others were putting together, that ShahZaM was listed as potentially trialing for EG. So it was definitely about a month or so ago the discussion was going down. Maybe even as recently as a few days ago they were still trying him out, because, you know, let's be honest, right? We believe that Derek and Superman are coming in with, of course, Jorgamo staying. So that's a trio. And then the rest of the team was like, is it Apoth? Is it Nature? Maybe is the IGL? These were the discussions. Quite possibly, as recently as a few days ago, ShahZaM was still in the conversation, still potentially trialing with the team. And now the team has decided maybe to go another direction. Probably Nature as the IGL seems the most likely option at the moment. So, yeah, difficult for ShahZaM, right? Now, this could be referring to other things. I know that he had a really difficult time the other day when, like, well, he took delivery of his car and then he got hit into, had a bad accident. So thankfully he's okay. I believe it was probably this McLaren on the right hand side who he was talking about. So it might just be, you know, it might be that, you know, it might just be that he's had a tough start to the year for various reasons, and now he's looking forward to 2025. But maybe there's something in it in terms of EG turning him down and moving in a different direction. So tough for ShahZaM if that's the case. Obviously wishing him the best going forward. He's still on G2 from a content perspective, but, you know, not playing for their team, of course. But speaking of G2, FNS has been giving his thoughts on the best teams in the Americas next season. The Americas is incredibly competitive, right? There's loads of great teams going into next season. There's probably three that on paper should be the best. Loud's like they're going to be good, but I don't think they're going to necessarily be top three on paper. Salek might disagree with that assessment, but I think that's the general point of view. I would say the top three, theoretically, are Sentinels, NRG, and Lev, right? Like, in terms of the rosters they've put together on paper, that should be true, and Sentinels have proved they can be in that category based on what they did at the Africa TV tournament not that long ago. So FNS has been giving his thoughts, though, on which of those three teams are most likely to flop, because, look, not all of those three teams can make it through to Masters Madrid. There's loads of other great teams in the Americas as well. You know, we've mentioned 100T, we've mentioned Cloud9, of course. Loud shouldn't be too far away. G2 as well. Like, sure, they were basically the Essential winners last year. I'm not expecting them to be monstrously impactful, but I still think they'll be pretty good. Then there's other teams that could mix it up as well. You know, obviously Furia, MIBR, Crew, you know, they should be in the ballpark somewhere mid to lower midfield. But on paper, the scariest rosters, I think, are SEN, NRG, and Lev. But one of them won't make it to Masters Madrid, and at least one of them will not deliver the results expected. Because if you're, let's say you're third place in the Americas, you know, where does that put you internationally? That's probably considered a flop. So this is FNS's thoughts on, out of those three teams, who's the most likely to flop.
Is there a possible way SEN or NRG roster flops? Nah, low key, I think one team between Lev, Sentinels, and NRG is gonna flop for sure. I just don't know which one it is. And the least likely is obviously NRG. Lev is gonna flop, you guys think? Yeah, see, that's the thing. NRG has an absurd roster that you can't really question. Sentinel's insane form offseason, and then Lev also really good form offseason. So all three teams look good going in. So I don't know which one is, but one of them will flop.
So I would have said maybe a couple of months ago that the most likely to flop would have been, well, at the time we didn't even know what NRG was going to be, so that was one point. But I would have said that it would have probably been Sentinels at the time because we hadn't seen Sentinels play, and Lev were looking, on paper they're looking really good. Aspas is coming in, King's still over there, Mazzino, great team. Nosra, of course, was still there at the time with Tex coming into play, but nowadays, of course, Nosra is gone. So I think if you had to guess of those three teams, you guys might not think those three teams are the best on paper. I personally think that I do, but let's say that those are the three best teams. Which is the most likely to flop? I think you've got to lean Liv right now because internally things seem like a bit of a mess, right? Nosra's gone, Com's coming in, there's questions about the internal leadership and the management and all these questions behind the scenes, so it seems like a bit of a challenge for Lev to deliver the results expected of them at the present time. We'll see if that remains true as the season begins, but I think of all the teams that are likely to kind of have some sort of blow it up internally, especially of the good ones, Liv are probably the most likely. I guess then there's a question, who's likely to be better between NRG and Sentinels? Because Sentinels did great in the offseason, no doubt about it. The question's always been, can they maintain that level? Can they do what they did in Africa when the season begins? Because if they play at that level, sure, they'll be right up there, one of the best teams in the world, if not challenging for consistent event wins on an international level. But with Sentinels, this has always been the point, right? Are they actually going to deliver the results expected when push comes to shove? Are they going to flop or fall short of expectations like normal? Even Zekken obviously has joked around this stuff and said, we're going to flop at some point. Maybe this level isn't going to be maintainable. And, I think I would have maybe said that about previous Sentinels iterations. But this time, with Kaplan and Drew Spark and the coaching staff over there, I don't know, it feels to me like Sentinels are in a better position than ever to actually execute on the talent they have. NRG, I'm inclined to agree with FNS's point of view that NRG are just so good on paper that it can't possibly not work. But it can always possibly not work, right? Now, NRG might be the least likely to fall short, which maybe is true. Don't know what you guys think about that, but we haven't even seen NRG really play yet. We don't know how good they could be. Whereas we have seen Lev and Sentinels play, even if with Lev it's a slightly different iteration. So I think I kind of agree with FNS's perspective, but I'm not convinced as of yet that NRG are the least likely to not deliver, especially when we don't really, we haven't seen them in action like we have the other two teams in question right now. But of course, Lev have other things going on, and Sentinels should be in position, I would say, to, deliver on their potential good performance and actually qualify for Masters Madrid. But it's still going to be a massive uphill battle, very difficult for all involved. Very much interested your thoughts though in the comment section below. If you want to guess the map here, give you a couple of seconds. It is indeed what we just saw Zeltis on, which is Breeze, which is kind of mind blowing. But hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.